All right, so we heard a lot. We covered a lot of ground with Senator Welch, and I have a lot of questions for you. But first, for anyone who is in the audience or certainly on our live stream that maybe doesn't know Common Spirit Health, give us kind of the lay of the land of how you fit into the healthcare system, rural health space.
Great. Thanks for having me here. It's wonderful to be here and talk about healthcare. Common Spirit Health is an organization that's relatively new. We were formed in February of 2019 with a merger of two of the largest Catholic healthcare systems in the country. So today we operate in 24 states. We operate nearly 160 hospitals in those states, along with a number of other assets. We pretty much do anything you could imagine in healthcare, from operating rural hospitals, critical access hospitals, large teaching academic facilities, suburban hospitals. We have about 2,500 other clinical sites in those states with physician offices, et cetera. And so we're one of the largest providers of Medicaid in the country. And so what you and this your prior guest just finished talking about are quite important to us, certainly. And we're very focused on ensuring that everyone in every community we serve has access to high-quality health care.
Yeah, so obviously Senator Welch kind of talking about what's happening in Vermont, how he kind of sees the landscape for healthcare right now, but you're living this every day.
Yes.
I mean, across from rural to urban to, teaching, I mean, Medicaid, all of kind of the areas. So I can't think of a better person to speak to about this, but can you talk about the state of America's health systems and hospitals today? Are we in crisis?
Crisis is a great word. First and foremost, I'd say I'm really proud of what my colleagues at Common Spirit do. We have about 150 plus thousand employees who get up every morning trying to ensure that the communities they serve are healthier. And so I'm certainly proud of what our colleagues at Common Spirit and certainly our colleagues across healthcare do every day to ensure that Americans have access to great healthcare. Having said that, crisis is a great term when you think about the financial viability of the American healthcare system. You heard from the senator previously that his comment was he believes we have great quality in our healthcare system in the United States, and I'd say yes, we do. We have great quality at intervention. When you need your health restored, our healthcare system performs quite well. But we certainly know that we have challenges when it comes to access to primary care. We have challenges when it comes to access to appropriate mental health. And those problems are amplified in communities of color, in rural communities, in urban communities. Those problems are amplified. We know we have shortages of providers, both physicians. We know we have a nursing shortage, and we have a financing challenge. The senator talked about the concerns he has around rising costs of healthcare, around the rising costs of prescription drugs for everyday Americans. Those are very prevalent. We have challenges as it relates to insurance and insurance companies paying for services that their members get. And so from all those perspectives, we have a significant challenge. And then as we think about, I'm sure you might ask maybe a question about HR 1. I can't call something beautiful that I don't consider beautiful. But as we think about that, that puts even more pressure on a system that is trying to recover from frankly what America considered a heroic effort during COVID, right? The American healthcare system responded incredibly well during COVID, incredibly well to a global pandemic. And as some stability around both the issues of provider resiliency and burnout, and the issues around the financial challenges related to COVID, as those things are trying to wane, we now are in the midst of yet another crisis.
So when you look at HR 1, the big beautiful bill, what is your biggest, and you go up to the Hill or you're talking to your colleagues, what's the biggest concern?
Well, I think, I would start at the highest level and say that the significant attack around the existing funding mechanisms for healthcare are the big concern.
Yeah.
And frankly, I run a very, very large healthcare system, and at times people think of an organization that has, nearly $40 billion of revenue as impervious to challenge, and we certainly are not, particularly when we serve so many patients who are either covered by governmental programs or who are not covered at all. So the first thing I would say is I'm concerned by the fact that H.R. 1 attempts to suggest that the way many states attempt to support raising reimbursement levels for healthcare through a process called the provider fee, the provider tax program, that H.R. 1 attempts to suggest that is somehow inappropriate financing. For us alone, it's nearly $1 billion of lost revenue. And when I apply that to across our network of facilities and communities across America, I get extremely concerned about its disproportionate impact in parts of our system, like rural health care. I'm concerned also by cuts to the disproportionate hospital program that again provides funding for those who cover larger percentages of the Medicaid population. We see a 9-figure loss of revenue on an annual basis related to that, and while most of the Medicaid things don't happen until 2027 and 2028, we believe the DISH cuts will begin starting this fiscal year, and again, that's real money for us. I'm certainly concerned about issues around loss of access to Medicaid enrollment, because what that will mean for us and for many of America's healthcare providers is those folks who today have some form of reimbursement will then go to having no form of reimbursement. And for all of us who are not-for-profit healthcare systems whose emergency departments are open 24/7, who accept patients without doing wallet biopsies, we don't turn you away. I'm concerned about our levels of charity and bad debt rising at a disproportionate level that becomes unsustainable.
I was talking to a girlfriend who's in the health space, and she said, in DC it's often the theoretical, but in your line of work, it is people coming into a hospital, coming into access for care, and you don't turn people away, right? I mean, so you talked a little bit about Medicaid cuts, the possibility of them. What, is that, and the revenue impacts that have in terms of balancing your books, but does that mean that you might have to see systems close or hospitals close? I mean, is that kind of how dire what we're talking about?
Well, I think the short answer is yes. There's a lot of rhetoric around hospitals make a lot of money. And, the short answer is not-for-profit hospitals, yes, there are some that are quite profitable. There are others that are not. And when you look at the trends of profitability in hospitals, it has been declining significantly. When you translate or relate that profitability factor to rural hospitals, what you find is that most lose money. So we operate 30 rural hospitals. I would tell you that almost half of them lose money. And so the notion that, well, because you're part of a large system, well, you'll just figure it out.
Resiliency,
well, at some point you don't just figure it out, because when 40+% of your facilities are not making money, you have to figure out, can you sustain those? We've certainly seen over the last years that we've had a couple that have closed because they've just become unsustainable. In some cases, they're unsustainable because you can't maintain the level of quality and safety of the facilities that you would like. You see in some cases the facility not closing, but services going away. And so in rural communities, for instance, where you have a need for maternal health care, oftentimes you can't keep OB programs going when you have funding declines, significant losses, and you don't have access to providers and or caregivers that are necessary.
So we talked with the senator about the $50 billion Rural Health Transformation Fund. some Republicans have said that's going to ease the pain, made some rural state senators support the bill when they had had some concerns. How do you view that fund? Is it a drop in the bucket? Is it going to be enough? Is it?
So I think we all in this room understand math relatively well, and I think the senator did a nice job of sort of saying $1 trillion on one hand and $50 billion on the other hand. Putting a finer point on it, yes, it's $50 billion over 10 years, so it's $10 billion a year. It's completely disproportionate in terms of the loss, and so I certainly wouldn't argue with someone saying, well, listen, it's $10 billion that potentially can go into rural health care. Absolutely, but it certainly doesn't make up for the losses, and it won't prevent rural hospitals that frankly may be either barely sustainable today or unsustainable and being carried by larger systems, having to make very difficult decisions that facility no longer is viable. And so the Rural Health Transformation Fund will not save America's rural hospitals.
So we have advocates here, you in the staff, we've got staffers certainly in the audience and on the live stream and others. What do you hope lawmakers will do when it comes to rural health? Is there something proactive, or is it figuring out a way to find more funding?
Well, certainly figuring out a way to find more funding is needed. I mean, I think that I'd love to say that if it's simple as the senator's comment of just repeal that bill, but I'm not expecting a repeal in the short term.
Yeah, and that's tough to see.
It's tough to see that. When you think about the provider tax program, for us, 2/3 of the net revenues that we generate from our rural health care comes from provider taxes. 2/3 of it. So when those programs go away, and in some states, with what's happening in the bill, those provider fee programs become non-viable. And so in a number of places, we go from whatever the provider fee was to zero. When that happens in places where we have significant rural hospitals in our central region, we'll have to make very difficult decisions. So I'm hopeful that there will be some addressing around that. And then when you talk about other things like funding telehealth and funding support for provider investments, those things are useful, but they don't overcome the fact that you have rural hospitals that frankly become significantly negative in terms of their annual operations.
So we are quickly running out of time, but I often end these kinds of conversations with, I always like to ask, what's the one takeaway that you hope folks here will take away from our conversation this morning? Because we've covered a lot. Yeah,
well, I think the takeaway is fairly straightforward. First and foremost, we're in crisis. We need to develop solutions to the financing of America's health care. And frankly, that was true before H.R. 1, but H.R. 1 puts a extremely fine point on the fact that we will have a unsustainable financing mechanism for America's health care, and the work is not over. We need to find solutions that are creative, that hopefully are bipartisan, so irrespective of what administration's in power, we have lasting solutions for the financing of America's health care.
All right, we are going to leave it there. Right, thank you so much this morning.
It,
we really appreciate it.
Thank you.